All right, we are live here on Dynasty Saturday Night 5 Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast on the Going for Two Live Network. If you're listening on the Going for Two Live podcast feed, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. If you're watching here on YouTube or other video iterations, do the things. Feed the algorithm monster what it must be fed. Subscribe, notification bell, like, comment, directly wire it to the chip in your head, play it and walk away so our hours of watching gets jacked up. Whatever it is that you can do to help us. This is we're cooking now. We got both of us here, and it's live. That hasn't happened in a while because life be lifing. Josh, before I ask you how you are, however, Henry Kissinger's dead.
Yeah, it's me and my wife have been looking forward to this day for a while. Seems like once every few weeks, we're like, is Henry Kissinger dead yet? It's like, no. It's like just kind of ruins your day a little bit. But
there's a Twitter account that's like, is Henry Kissinger dead yet? And the way I found out is somebody DM'd me when that account tweeted yes. So
that's funny.
How are you?
Doing great. Yeah. Besides that, things are good. Got through the holidays, hosted one for the first time. So that was exciting and stressful, but it was good. It was good to see family.
How many people came?
Like 7.
Oh,
but
okay.
There were 5 dogs there, and our 2 dogs aren't used to being around other dogs. So it seemed like more. No, but it went well. It was good. How about you?
And honestly, Thanksgiving, the way the tradition is kind of morphed for me, it's like it's just me and the dogs every year, and I make really good vegan food, and it's so quiet. Nobody wants anything from me. And like there's that Thursday and Friday are the days that I give myself like the most permission, to like really rest and unplug from things, I mean, I don't go completely off the grid, and with this Palestine stuff popping off, I'm always doing something, but it was really good. It was really refreshing for sure. It was great. It was great.
That actually sounds pretty nice.
It is. Oh, it's great. It's great. But here we are in December, the month of Derrick Henry. I don't know. And we are, going to do our lists of 5 as a way to talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football, which is, kind of what we always do here. And so if you're new, that's what we do. It's just kind of like I don't want to say it's a gimmick, but it's just kind of our entry point, our vehicle to talk about the things that we want to talk about. And this week, we're talking about stashes. I almost made a new intro video that included a clip from the Fish song Stash, but I just was a little too lazy and scattered today after the ADHD meds wore off. So for the purposes of this exercise, and I guess I asked this question a lot to you, how did you go about like targeting who your stashes were? Like what makes them a good stash, and like did you have any like criteria for what makes a stash or anything like that?
Yeah, I didn't really come in with the criteria in mind, honestly, but most of the people I gravitated towards were rookies. 4 of the 5 I'm talking about are rookies who, some people thought they might start slow, but other people didn't, and they're just not, getting off to as good of a start as they are. But that's not meaning you should write them off, and you could probably buy them for pretty cheap. The other one's someone whose situation is going to change next year, and the trends head in the right direction. So it was really just see who was trending upwards, and the market might not catch on to it yet, and go ahead and get out of there before these other people catch on and start. The price goes up.
Yeah, for sure. I can dig that. I kind of looked at it the same way. I think, first of all, just at a broad category of underperforming rookies are always good for stash. So I was thinking like value is going to go up over the offseason, or value will go up in 2024, right? Like these are plays for like largely for next year, which maybe means there's a few teams in each league that this conversation isn't for. But congratulations, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe this is more for folks looking for next year. And I tried to think about who might be a buy low, who might be a value, who might be like a waiver wire pickup, or in other words, there are different ways you can go about acquiring them, right? You can just buy them low. Maybe they're on waivers in certain leagues, or the way that I think a couple of these are going to probably turn out is that if you're in trade talks about something else, you get one of these folks, quote unquote, thrown in, right? And so, you know, I think I mean, as you can see on the show sheet, there's a million that I would love to talk about. I'm going to narrow it down, but I kind of went positionally, so
yeah,
we'll go from there. Yeah. All right, today's show is brought to you by our lovely sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is industry leader with best ball pick'em tournaments and also DFS. Right, they got the whole battle royale thing. They had that dog bowl stuff, and I guess that's kind of getting settled in like Miami, right, in the next couple weeks or something like that, right? They've got other major sports besides football. You know, golf, baseball, hockey, basketball. You know, questionable to me if some of those are actual sports. And the pick'ems thing, I don't have that in Jersey, but that's very popular. You know, it's we're not allowed to say certain words about it, so you pick higher or lower on a certain, you know, line that's out there, yardage or receptions or whatever, and you can bundle them together into like these parlays, the 20x and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I don't have it in Jersey, or maybe fortunately for my bank account. You know,
it's probably true.
I've got DFS and I've got sports betting, but the DFS sports betting or whatever they call it, right? Like the pick'ems, I don't have. I don't know. Like it's probably, I don't know, the some sports books and casinos politically pressuring people to like not allow because it's going to eat on their action or that sort of thing. But you know, I don't know what it is, but yeah, some states don't have it. Why am I babbling on about this? Well, as you can see, if you're watching here on our lovely video, we have a nice shiny QR code for you. Or if you're just listening, you can go to underdog.com or the Underdog app. And if you are a new account and you make your first deposit and you use the code GF2, up to $100 of that first deposit will be doubled, matched by our friends at Underdog. And oh, by the way, while I'm here shilling for Underdog, Josh Norris and Hayden Winks do great shows. Like it's like in season, like you don't just like pick your best ball team and walk away. They've got their rankings and stuff. They've got stats versus film. They've got scheme. Their Sunday reactions show with John Daigle is, I think, one of the best like instant rapid response reactions to all the action on Sunday that really goes under the hood on the box scores. So yeah, I guess, you know, I'm simping for Underdog tonight. So yeah.
I need to check that out. I haven't listened to that yet. I've seen some of their stuff on YouTube Shorts and some other things, but
it's great, right? Because like I'm busy, right? So I got Red Zone on, but like I'm always doing something Sunday. So there's always a chunk of the games between being busy and taking my nap and walking the dogs and that sort of that I'm gonna miss. And so the only thing that like fills that in for me is checking the box scores later, right? So then I have to do other stuff like snap counts and things like that. Yeah. And like they do a great job of helping me out on Sunday night, you know, with all that. So yeah,
nice,
great. Yeah. All right, so let's do it. Let's kick off our list of 5. Josh, who is your first stash?
All right, I'm going to start off with someone who I think could give you the most in return if you can stash them. And I've been able to acquire this person through some trades. It's kind of an add-on instead of a pick. Let's go with Marvin Mims here. You know, coming out of the combine, he has elite athleticism. I mean, he's one of the, which I mean, you've seen glimpses of some of the big playability he has. He's taken runs all the way to the house, 50 yards, caught deep passes. And he's even shown the ability to go up and win and catch the ball in traffic in the NFL, which is something some people knocked him for, not being physical with his catches. And really, he's just not being utilized enough. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't supplanted Jerry Jeudy and gotten some more looks in some 2 wide receiver sets. But I'm not going to let that dismay me from his upside, his potential. And I think next year he could easily be the number 1 receiver on that team.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I love Mims. You know, have a lot of shares. I liked him more than QJ coming out.
Yep.
You know, he flashed and then it was silent. It was like free Marvin Mims for weeks in DFS. And now it's to the point where even he's joking. You know, Russ doesn't throw it to me anyway. I don't know if you saw that clip or heard about it, right? Yeah. So it's tough, right? But I do think supplanting Jeudy is definitely in the cards. I think Jeudy, for whatever reason, it's between the ears or whatever, it's not going to work out. He's likely, I think, is an off-season transaction of some kind. They did pick up his extension, but I think they can probably trade him for maybe a fourth or something like that, or a fifth, and get rid of him. And then I think Mims take. In fact, another great show that I watched, the Audible, Cecil Lammy and Sigmund Bloom over there on Football Guy.
That's a good one,
Cecil kind of half indicated, I think, if I was reading between the lines correctly, that's the planting of Judy could start like as soon as this week. Definitely keep your eye out for that. So like, do you have an example of an add-in in a trade, or do you have like a value roughly of like what you'd be willing to give up Marvin Mims for? Because like he was going on average like mid-second, right? Like sometimes late second in a lot of rookie drafts that we do, Superflex, PPR, tight end premium, and I was okay with that. I think there was a case to be made for Mims. There was a case to be made for Rice. There was a case to be made for Mingo, right? All the guys going in that range. So, I was fine. I have some shares. I don't know that you could get him for a second from somebody because they probably are holding on to him exactly the way you're talking about. Let's see if the value goes up.
Yeah.
But I think if I was selling and I knew the second was going to be pretty early, I might think about it, but I just think there's a lot of ceiling there. So I think I would hold. Yeah.
I've been doing either like a 24 early third or, because people look into that. So I just say, look, this might be early. People put it in the keep trade cut. They look at it, get skewed. So I've been getting early third value for him and some add-ins. But yeah, second round, if I had Mims, I'm probably not going to give him up unless, because most of the teams I'm paying for him and trying to get him, it's teams I'm rebuilding or I know I'm not going to win this year. Mm-hmm. Like knowing I'm not getting production. That's the main. Yeah. That's the main teams I'm buying him in. So, like at that point, if I have him, I'm probably just going to hang on to him.
Yeah, if you're in the position where picks are benefiting you, you're probably in the position where Mims is benefiting
exactly.
You. I just was kind of thinking about it in a vacuum, but yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the trade that I put him in last, so that's what I'm.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I was trying to talk a little longer so you could find the trade because I saw you
the sleeper on the phone. It's hard to find trades you've done. There's so many. The denied ones clog up, so I'm having to go through the chat. But yeah, I'll find it. So you can go.
Some people have great memories for like trades that they made, and I'm like, I don't know. I got 40 something leagues. Like I don't know. I have to go digging.
These past 2 weeks, I've made more trades than I have in the last like season and a half. So. Been making a lot of moves. I traded for Dak, traded for Mahomes in 2 different leagues. So, I'm competing in a lot of leagues, so I'm trying to make some moves to keep that. So this one was one I made a couple weeks ago in a rebuild.
And for me, I think I'll go off that underperforming rookie vibe. And let's see, who do I want to talk about? Maybe not underperforming, but certainly one that is still a rookie that I think is a good stash. I'm going to talk about Izzy Abanikanda, right? But because I like to cheat, I'm going to talk about running backs. I think Chubb, less so Dobbins. Those are stashes for obvious reasons. I think Elijah Dotson is a curious stash with Eckler probably gone from the Chargers next year. And I think Chase Brown and Evan Hull. Chase Brown coming off IR, Evan Hull probably not until next year, I think, right? Those are guys that I think you hold on to. I don't know that Moss stays in Indianapolis. Mixon aging, they might as well see what they have in Chase Brown these next few weeks because their season is shot with Jake Browning and all that. To Ernest Johnson, I mean, he's pretty obvious, but could be a league winner. But I want to talk about Izzy Abanikanda. That's my running back stash. A guy coming out who I liked, power, speed, or size speed, some power, although, could be better at breaking tackles. Definitely didn't have like the wiggle and the elusiveness that you want from, a premier back, but certainly one that I think can be a good change of pace for a Breece Hall as Breece Hall moves into, now the third year of his career and hopefully will be a little healthier with the knee next year, where Breece Hall is getting a lot of the receiving work and some of the early down work. But, Boniconda's in there for kind of mixing in, change of pace, hit that hole, run fast, He's only 20 years old, so he's raw, has some
Exactly.
development to go. But a good sign is they moved Carter and said one of the reasons they moved Carter was to get Izzy more snaps. Didn't quite pan out because of game script, but he's a guy I really liked. I had him kind of in that same conversation with some of the backs like, Bigsby and that sort of thing before, the draft. I think I ended up with him at like 5 or 6 overall after the draft. I'm not sure, but yeah, in the reality of zero RB that is now both in the NFL and in our dynasty streets, I think Izzy Abanikanda is a guy that I want to get more of. Yep. He's definitely the kind of person where it's more of the throw him in a trade thing. I mean, I'll throw you a 4th for him, like if you're looking for it, but like. He might be the kind of guy where I'm looking at somebody's roster and their draft picks on Sleeper. They maybe moved picks already. So it's like, okay, give me like, instead of getting like a 2nd, right? It's like Izzy in a 3rd, right? That's what I'll ask for because, they don't have enough 2nds or something like that when I'm working a trade for something else. I think that's kind of the way that I would be acquiring most of my Izzy. Did you find that trade you made for Mims, or you want to talk about Izzy?
No, I couldn't find it, and it'd take too long. I'm in too many leagues. But yeah, I'll talk about Izzy. I think, like you said, Michael Carter, moving him really boasted for him because Dalvin's there this year, but that's obviously not just till this year, and I don't even know if he'll make it through the rest of the year. So it's definitely once that happened, I went out and tried to get Izzy in a few leagues. No one was really trying to buy it. So I think some other people are on it because he got some hype there towards the end, especially during preseason when he looked really good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Talk about sample sizes all you want, but he averages more yards a carry than Devon Achane. He has 1 carry for 11 yards, so I don't think that's nothing to scoff about.
All right. Yes. We will not be applying any minimum carries in our filters. We will be calling Izzy the most efficient back in NFL history. Toronto Dave checking in saying, "Sup, legends." I don't know who you're talking to. I ain't a legend. So legend in my own mind. I don't know. Is that the phrase? But yeah, always good to have our friend from the true north.
Good to see you, Dave.
So who is your next Dynasty stash?
All right, let's go over here. I'm going to go with the guy who's not a rookie of mine. It's Khalil Shakir.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Gabe Davis there, he's seen an uptick in his targets, uptick in usage. He's a little bit more of a sure target than Gabe Davis. He's got a much better catch rate. And Gabe Davis is a free agent next season. I know a lot of people like him in Buffalo, but there's also a good chance that they'll just move on, and Khalil Shakir should be the one to move in unless they go out and draft somebody. But in the last he's seen 4 targets in the last 5 or 6 games, and that's with all their pass catchers outside of Dawson Knox out there. So that injury might also been a reason for the uptick, but he's getting looks. He's doing a pretty good job converting them into touches. He's got a touchdown. He's got pretty good big playability too. So it's not like you're missing out on that if you don't have Gabe Davis and Shakir. So I think he's someone to hang on to. It's been a little slower. I've had him for a year now or 2, but I think not to the level of Nico Collins, but I think there's still a good chance for him to not break out to a wide receiver 1 or 2, but at least maybe tail into maybe wide receiver 3. But that's pretty valuable in Dynasty, especially what you got for him.
I remember during the rookie process, people were calling Shakir kind of like a discount Sky Moore, like similar skill set, but is going to get drafted later and is ranked a little lower. And here we are, and he's a hot commodity, and Sky Moore is essentially droppable, right? Like, yeah, I wonder about the Knox thing. I wanted to pick your brain about that. I'm glad you brought that up. When they drafted Kincaid and my pants got tight, another reaction that I had was, well, also they gave Dawson Knox a contract and they like him. Yeah. They're going to be playing different positions, but that will affect snaps. It will affect, targets in a similar area of the field, that sort of thing, right? And we saw that happen a little bit early in the year, right? And now that Knox is gone, not gone, but injured, right? Both Kincaid and Shakir, more so Kincaid, but Shakir, they're getting more looks, right? They're getting more buzz. My question for just you or anybody is, we know the Bills like Knox, right? When Knox is healthy, right? Like, what does this look like? I know we've got a new offensive coordinator, right? Say they don't re-sign Gabe. They do have Justin Shorter as an option that they can rotate in. Maybe they sign a guy or draft a guy late to be an outside presence or that sort of thing. But I don't know. I'm a little like, don't get me wrong. Like, I agree. Shakir's a stash. I want him.
Yeah.
But like, I'm a little nervous about what it looks like when Knox is back.
Yeah, I think a lot of this hinges on Gabe Davis not being there, because if Gabe Davis isn't there, then I think Kincaid just kind of fills that role and Knox can come in as, I don't see what's stopping them from having him be the 2, Kincaid being the 2 out on the outside and then putting Shakir on the slot. They're kind of switch them with Diggs. So I think a lot of that just hinges on Gabe Davis coming back next year, whether he does, because I think Knox is mostly just going to be a short yardage end zone threat anyways, and I don't really see Shakir being that. So
when and if Gabe stays for whatever reason, right, your acquisition cost on Shakir probably wasn't much.
Yeah.
Anyway, right? So,
Yeah, what I haven't bought for him since last year, but when I did, it was literally just a throw in for like a late third, 4th round pick. So if it doesn't work out, oh well. I'm not really that worried about it.
Yeah, I think last week I made a trade where Shakir was an add-on. Again, one of those situations where I'm scrolling through somebody's roster and picks, and I'm like, gosh, it'd be really good if they had this, right? So then if they don't have that, what's my alternative? And then maybe Shakir in a 3rd instead, or Shakir in a 4th or something like that. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So I did running back. Let's talk about quarterbacks, right? So I think stashes can come, like I said, from a variety of places: underperforming rookies, injured players, buy lows, that sort of thing. I think there's some obvious, injury acquisitions like Burrow. I did a lot of give me Burrow in a second and I'll give you Justin Herbert. I had like 3 or 4 of those trades happen, and so hopefully that pans out. I think Deshaun Watson, again, be price conscious on that, because there's always that range of outcomes where what if we're seeing the cratering of his career, right? Rodgers and Cousins. Cousins is going to be a free agent. He's going to be, quarterbacking Atlanta or San Francisco or somewhere next year. And I think Tannehill, obviously not on these guys' level, right? But injured. They said we might as well see what we got in Levis. I think they have an out in the contract, or the contract expires. So you might see him as a bridge guy somewhere next year, as a high priority backup behind a young quarterback. You might see him even, after the carousel is over, someone stuck with him as a starter, because they lost out on Cousins or whatever, right? So, those are all, I think, injured veterans. But I want to talk about AOC, right? I was going to talk about Jordan Love. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Jordan Love, but his play has been improving and over the last few weeks. I think it was one of those, like, he was running hot, and then, regression caught up with him. And then the last few weeks, he's starting to turn things around. And, some of his numbers through his first 11 starts are, exactly the same as Aaron Rodgers, which is interesting. But anyway, I think he's not really a stash anymore. I think he's kind of – so I'm going to talk about AOC. AOC, I think Aiden O'Connell, who knows what the heck is going to be going on in Las Vegas. Obviously, Jimmy G won't be there. What is their path to getting a really great quarterback rookie prospect in there? Not much. I think at the very least, Aiden O'Connell has shown that he can be a backup and spot starter with some level of competence, right? And in a super flex dynasty league with bye weeks and injuries, that means something, right? It may not mean a lot as far as your acquisition cost, but he's a guy I might want to get thrown into a trade. He might be on some contenders taxi squad right now, right? And they've got an injured, an injured Burrow or, something like that. Might have taken care of that a couple weeks ago, but a couple weeks ago, I might have said, okay, give me an AOC, right? So I'm sending them a quarterback that's going to help their Burrow, and they're going to give me AOC back as part of the package that I want for that quarterback, right? Say I'm offloading like a Stafford, I think he's a decent stash. I think he's gonna have a career of spot starting, high priority backup kind of guy, and be playable enough, in some bye weeks and injuries and things like that. Where again, thinking about the acquisition cost, Thomas Tipple, friend of the show, likes to say, "Listen, just because something's cheap doesn't mean you should buy it." I get that, right? But I think in this particular case, considering price, AOC is intriguing for me.
Yeah, I agree. He's honestly impressed me a little bit more than I expected. I mean, I don't think he's quite the Jimmy G's level, but he's shown some really good skill and really good ability. And the way the quarterback landscape is in the league this year, he's definitely. I'm definitely going to start getting 4 or 5 instead of 3 or 4 guys I think could start. So, yeah, I think he's a good stash.
All right, and who is your next Dynasty stash?
All right, I'm going to jump to a quarterback since you're on one, and it's someone that I had higher than most people coming in. I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker. He just returned to practice, so I felt this was pretty relevant. Yeah, coming out of the drafts, I had him ahead of Will Levis, and with the caveat that you're not going to see him until 2024, maybe even 2025. But I think his arm talent is good enough to where I don't think it's hurt to stash him. Now that he's practicing, it might be a little bit more expensive to get him because the reports coming out of camp are that they're really impressed with how smooth he is and his arm talent. And I think coming right off injury, that's a good sign. He does still need to work on his reads. Like, I know that's his one downfall. He's a one-read quarterback. But I think that's something that he can learn. And I hope he's been, in his downtime, he's been trying to work on that with Jared Goff. I mean, speaking of Jared Goff, he's had his ups and downs lately. He's turned the ball over more than he's used to. And given the quarterback landscape, I could see something happening to that. Him getting hurt could happen any place. So I think he's a lot closer to playing time once he's healthy. And I think once he is, it's going to be hard to get the job back from him.
So you're expecting him to overtake Goff at some point?
I don't think – not this year for sure. Maybe that might be more of a 2024 if this stuff goes out through the end of the year. They lose Ben Johnson. Their offense might take a step back and they have him in there looking good in practice. They might. Or they might – I don't know. It's hard to predict the future. He might be on a different team. But I think they're going to lose Ben Johnson this year, so I think that's key. I can see the offense taking a step back and maybe giving him a chance.
For sure. I just out of curiosity, I think personally they're going to give Goff a contract because I don't think their path to a really good rookie quarterback is there. Obviously, they're a very good team this year. I don't think Hooker's going to be ready. And even if he does, I think, listen, Goff has limitations, right? But he does what they need him to do well. And I don't know that Hooker will really, it sounds weird to say, will Hooker ever really be a Jared Goff? I don't know. I think Hooker is probably going to be a career backup. But if they were to move on from Goff or Goff went somewhere, I think he's an okay guy to run out there for a year or two as a bridge. And so that's certainly worth stashing.
See, I think he's a little better than that. I think it will depend on the system he's in because he does have limitations reading defenses. But I think in the right type of system, I think he can be better than. I think he'd be about as good as someone like. Not skill set the same, but like Baker Mayfield, someone who's not great, but he's serviceable, especially in super flex leagues.
Okay, no, I can buy that. Yeah, in the draft process, I said if his ceiling could be Geno Smith, then or 2022 Geno Smith, right? Then sure,
I mean, that's actually a good example because Geno didn't really he was a backup for 4 or 5 years. Everyone thought he sucked, and then. So that's the thing. Quarterback's a little different. You can wait a little bit longer, and people can still break out at a later age.
By the way, speaking of Mims from a while ago, I'm pulling up a trades here on Fantasy Calc. Someone needed a quarterback and traded Mims straight up for Bailey Zappi on December 1st. So,
oh no, that's going to look bad later down the road.
But point being also is that that's one of the few 1-for-1 trades on the list that Mims is part of packages, and that's kind of what we're advising you to do here. And so that's why it's hard to say, oh, give up a third for him, right? Because it's more about, getting these guys in trades that are sort of a bigger picture and they're one piece of it. That's usually the simpler way to do it. But
yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let's talk about tight ends. Right. Obviously, Andrews is a guy that you're gonna want to buy. He's out for the season, right? He's an injured player, right? So take him off a contender's hands. I'm still Pitts pilled. I still think, Kyle Pitts is the shit, and like there's gonna be a change in coach or quarterback, or I don't know. I heard this one thing earlier this week that like, oh no. Like, don't think Arthur Smith is going anywhere. Like,
yeah. They're leading the division.
Which is really awful, but
trust me.
But maybe they got Kirk Cousins or whatever, right? So I think obviously I'm still Pitts pilled. I think a range of young tight ends are good here. I'm gonna focus on Cole Turner, but these guys have varying values, but are kind of similar in my head. Cole Turner, Luke Musgrave, Dulcich Kraft, and Darnell Washington. And I'm going to highlight Cole Turner here. Logan Thomas, props to Logan Thomas, because I came into this year saying he's old, he's injured. It's going to be Cole Turner season by, week 8 or whatever. And he's held it down. He's been useful in DFS, right? Like, he's held it down. So props to him. I don't know that he's long for that team. And Cole Turner has shown in flashes that he's developed since coming into the league. I think he can be the type of tight end that kind of fits 2023 offenses. Again, we're talking about low cost. We're talking about get him thrown in a trade, throw somebody a fourth for him, that sort of thing. Pick him up off waivers when somebody drops him, right? That's the kind of thing we're talking about with Cole Turner. And the one thing that kind of gives me pause is what's gonna be the situation there with GM and coaching and that sort of thing, right? Because all indications are from people who read the tea leaves that Ron Rivera is not going to be there next year. It's possible Bieniemy's not going to be there next year, and so you're going to have the whole like, well, this was the past regime's guy kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a huge investment in him, and it's a tight end. So but on the flip side, that lowers his cost, right? Not a lot of people have even heard of Cole Turner, but so yeah, that's my tight end stash. Go get you Cole Turner thrown into a trade, right? The person who just had Andrews go down, right? You give them, I don't know, Ertz and something and another thing, and and then as part of the return, you get Cole Turner, right?
Yeah. No, I like that. Logan Thomas is 32. He's had injury histories. Like you said, I'm pretty impressed with how well he's doing this year. Not that I'm surprised he's doing well, because when he plays, he's been pretty effective, but I'm just kind of surprised he's piecing together a healthy season. I do have a trade here. I'm in a league I'm contending. I lost Mark Andrews. Oh, shit. I just left that trade. I'll pull it back up. Yeah, I know you just barely touched on it. Mark Andrews, I lost him. I had 4 or 5 messages that day. So I got Patrick Mahomes in this. Yeah, I'm competing, and I have Josh Allen and Jordan Love. And the guy goes, "Do you want Patrick Mahomes?" I want Mark Andrews. I said, yes. So I got Mahomes. I gave him Mark Andrews, Kyler Murray, and a 2026 first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I still got Josh Allen, Jordan Love, and Baker Mayfield. So
who's your tight end now with Andrews gone?
My tight end's Otten. So I'm kind of light there, but he's doing enough. He's getting 7 to 10 points a game with the occasional touchdown. So I'm okay with that given the strength of the rest of my roster. But I'm still kind of shopping it, but not really trying to pay too much for a tight end.
Yeah, I think that's if we can have like a bonus content for tonight. I am a believer in no deadlines, but whether you have a deadline or not, if you're a contender, be careful with the going all in stuff, right? You wind up overpaying at this point in the season, and you overpay to really only marginally increase your percentage chance of winning the league.
Yeah.
Right. And it can hurt you. So just be careful with that. Who's your next dynasty stash?
My next dynasty stash, you touched on a tight end. Phrasing. So I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Michael Mayer.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go Michael Mayer. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I was high on him. I try not to be biased, but he's seen a good uptick in his usage. And he's a rookie tight end. He had the perfect recipe for a slow start. Rookie tight end on a bad offense. The quarterback AOC is looking better, but they had a new rookie quarterback, new head coach come in, and they have a target hog veteran wide receiver who seemed to be a little frustrated. So all that, I'm not looking into him for his first few games, only getting one catch a game. He's looked a lot better lately. And when he's out there and they throw him the ball, he looks really good running the ball, catching, and pushing for extra yardage. And I haven't watched a ton of tape of him blocking, but from what I've seen, it looks fine. Like, I don't think that's a glaring hole, so that's probably keeping him out on the field a little bit better. And I'm hoping this Antonio Pierce change. Since then, he's been getting more targeted. Josh Jacobs is getting the ball more, so I'm hoping that there's a change in how they use their players, because Jacoby Myers got back into he got a touchdown the other day. So I'm hoping they'll spread the wealth a little bit more to everybody.
There was I want to say it was a prime time game. I don't know. I think Mayer had a pretty nice touchdown catch, like in the corner edge of the end zone. Looked really good. Like that's the Michael Mayer that we liked, at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the recipe's perfect for it to be a slow start. I think there's still probably another year or two of him developing, but if he can stay healthy, I think he'll be really good.
Now, looking at the stashes, especially in the tight end premium league, relative to the others, this is probably the most expensive guy.
Yeah.
That we'll talk about tonight, or so it's less of a get him added to a trade kind of thing. I think again, it's more of a find the contender who's got some injuries, who has Waller, right? And like maybe give him somebody competent now, and and try to get Mayer back as part of that return. But let's say that wasn't the case. Just in a vacuum, how are you valuing Mayer right now?
Probably around like a late 24 second, because I know he went a little earlier than that, but depends on the tight end premium also. If there's no tight end premium, I'm not as interested, but 85% of my leagues are at least 1 point tight end premium, or at least half a point on top of the PPR. So somewhere in the second. Some people still value him in more than that if they got him higher in a rookie draft, if they got him tail into the first, because I've tried to get him on a lot of leagues, and it is kind of hard. But if you have him, this is more of a don't waver. If you need help with tight end, go get an older, cheaper tight end for this year, and just be patient with him, because I think the potential's there, and I think the coaching change is going to help premier their better players. So
I think I'm higher on Mayer than you might expect me to be. And it's not because I hate Notre Dame. I have him in a tier of tight ends 9 to 11. He's 11, but he's in that tier with McBride and Freiermuth.
Yeah, that is higher than I expected you to have him. I think I have him a little further behind that.
I think he reminds me. I like McBride better, but he reminds me of McBride in the sense that when McBride was coming out, we were told it's McBride and pray for rain. Well, and then first of it was McBride and Wiedemeyer, and then it was like McBride and pray for rain, and maybe a little bit of Dulcich, and then Dulcich rose and that sort of thing. And people, they loved Woods and Chiggy and all that jazz, right? But and Mayer the same way, right? Like he was it's Mayer and everybody else up until only a couple or a few months before the draft. That's when, the Kincaids and the Musgraves were getting buzz. But he is like McBride to me in the sense that I don't want to say he's still a traditional tight end, because but he is more in the I can block too. I have a more well-rounded game kind of thing. And he's probably gonna line up in the slot, right? But he's gonna, be more in line than a guy like Chig or Kyle Pitts or something like that, right? So, absolutely. Or Kincaid, right?
Yeah.
Got to add a white guy in there too. So to me, they're similar in that regard, and both had slow starts. And I probably like McBride's ceiling a little more. I think he's more athletic, but I think Mayer can do it. If you give Mayer a competent quarterback, I don't see a future in which he's all of a sudden the fourth or fifth passing option on that team in the near future, right? Like, so I don't know. I do like Mayer quite a lot. Yeah. And also, let's face it, right? Like we've talked about tight end as being top heavy and then deceptively deep after that. Like it starts to get a little yucky for me after like 11 or 12, as far as like that's when it kind of doesn't matter, when like there's guys that are, 2 rounds later in ADP of other guys and they're essentially the same, right?
Yep.
That's when I start getting into like the Schultzes, the Njokus and the Fergusons and, Komets and Musgraves and Walders and Ottens and Jawans Johnsons, like whatever, just put them in a bag and I'll pick one out,
Yeah.
Mayer is almost like that last, like hopeful dynasty tight end, like that he can be impactful, right?
Yeah. No, I like the McBride comparison because it took McBride a little while to get going, a full year and a half before he really even saw. So I just think it's important to realize tight ends take a little bit of time. But I do like that comparison.
All right, so I'm going to hop over to wide receiver again. If you're going to want to go the injured vets route, my honorable mentions are guys like Mike Williams and Kendrick Bourne. Williams is interesting because, his future is uncertain. There's a very real possibility with regime change and salary cap situations that both he and Keenan Allen are not there next year. Like,
yeah.
I don't think that like that's the most likely of the outcomes. Like, I think at least one of them will be there, but it's possible he's not there, and he's going to be hitting 28, 29, and that's the first year back from the ACL, right? So. Like, be careful of what you're doing with that sort of investment, but like it's there, right? Like, he's certainly a guy in the offseason that you can flip once there's like good buzz about his rehab or something. But who I really want to talk about in this particular case is Andre Iosivas. I should have checked the NFL pronunciation guide before this. Before the draft, we heard he's kind of like Christian Watson, right? Raw, athletic, small school, big, fast, right? Needs some development. So to me, he was like Christian Watson, but not quite the prospect that Christian Watson was when Christian Watson was coming out. The prospect, however you want to feel about how Christian Watson has turned out, especially this year, whatever, right? But two things I think are going well for Iosivas in this particular scenario. One, they've already shown a propensity to try to use him, right? They've put in like some red zone targets for him. He has a couple touchdowns, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's not like just, a nothing, right? And on top of that both T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd's contracts are up, right? And they drafted, I think, a T. Higgins replacement, not one for one, but, in the role in Iosivas, and a possible Boyd replacement in the 6th round in Charlie Jones. And Iosivas is a guy that I've been adding on waivers recently. He's a guy I'm trying to get thrown into trades. He's a guy I have a few shares of on my taxi squad already. In a world where we're ready to forget about rookies, wide receivers, if they don't hit within the first few weeks of their rookie season, I think he's the perfect kind of stash that I would try to make.
Yeah, he's the kind of stash that you can just go and pick him up. You don't even really have to worry about initiating a trade with somebody because most places he is. And if he is on someone's taxi squad, it should be next to nothing to get him. You can probably just throw him in on top of anything. But yeah, I like him. He has the same amount of touchdowns as T. Higgins. That's interesting. But yeah, all those things could go that way. I don't think Boyd's got too many years of being super productive left in him anyways. Mm-hmm. So even if Higgins and Chase are somehow there, I still think there's a chance for him to come in and slide into that third role.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right.
Who is I think this is your last one, right?
One, yeah. My last one. It was someone I wasn't super high on, but thought that could change, and it has. Jalen Hyatt. When we first started doing rookie stuff, I thought I was going to be really high on Jalen Hyatt because watching him play, he was always making big plays. He was always catching the ball. Then when I looked into it, I saw some flaws. But I think the reason for his ascension is Tommy DeVito being the quarterback and actually the willingness to push the ball down the field.
What a world we live in.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito is elevating a player.
Yeah, I don't know what that says about DeVito, if it says more about Daniel Jones, but it's good. He's getting a lot more targets. He finally had his breakout game, so that's a good sign. And I'm hoping that the Giants kind of take this to heart and kind of realize how to use him a little bit better. Pulling up his stats to see his targets. I had it up and I lost it.
Yeah, he's been getting more run lately.
Yeah,
and I think he was on IR or was injured or concussion or something, right? Like
the first 5 games, it looks like he barely played. He had one long play, but he might have been battling injuries. So when he was out there, I don't think he was out on the field a lot to start off the season. And I think as the season goes on, they put him out there more because they realized us running 4 slot receivers out there and leaving Hyde on the bench isn't working because nobody's a deep threat. So I think they started using him also as a decoy a little bit and just running him deep. But yeah, I really like him. I think he's a good stash. He also might be a little bit expensive because some people had him propped up a little higher than he should have been. But I think he shouldn't be too hard to throw into a trade.
Yeah, Hyatt's very interesting. I hated him in the pre-draft process. Ryan Searfoss. It's not Searfoss. Jesus. What's Ryan's last name? Foss here on our.
I think it's Searfoss.
Is it?
Yeah.
Man, my brain just completely blanked.
Yeah, you had it right.
Anyway, Kyle Senra, another going for 2 family member, checking in. Always good to see you, Kyle. Yeah, so he loved him. Ryan loved him. Jeff loved him. Wrote an article about him where the headline was essentially like, Jalen Hyatt is the new NFL, right? He's small and he's fast, and I was caught up in the rookie process between we've talked about this before. I don't want to bore people. On the one hand, we had this the data hasn't caught up. The small guys are going to be doing better than you think. But also on the other side, the other angel or devil on my shoulder or whatever, right, was, the defenses have adapted to the littles, and now the offenses are adapting to the defenses. So that might be a problem. And we looked at a guy like Hyatt, and we said, gimmicky offense. They have to scheme him where he's hidden in this in triples or getting ahead of steam, yep. Right? But the thing is, the NFL is doing that now, right?
Yeah.
And a coach like Daboll, who I don't know if he's going to be there, is a guy who knows how to get his, coach to his players' skills, right? And get his players open and that sort of thing. And so, I think I have a little more hope for Hyatt than I did, going into the season. I still don't love him. I still think he's a little one-trick pony but that trick can be very impactful. Let me show. I've got him at wide receiver 72 still. I know that sounds low, right? But I'm going to read a few names that are above him, and you tell me if you want Jalen Hyatt over them, right?
Okay.
Tyler Boyd. He's directly above.
Yeah, Dynasty, I'll take Hyatt.
Yeah. Zay Jones.
Hyatt.
Noah Brown.
Hyatt.
Wandale, his teammate, Wandale Robinson.
I got a soft spot for Wandale. I think I got Wandale a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Especially with Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Odell Beckham, Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas. Not doing it for you.
Thielen, I moved up a little bit. He's right around the range of Hyatt, just because he doesn't look like he's slowing down too much, and I think he's smart enough to get targets still. So, but definitely not Michael Thomas. I I dumped him down to the bottom of my rankings for a while now.
Tutu Atwell, Brandon Cooks, Curtis Samuel.
I'll take all those over Hyatt.
So I will then pivot to another guy I have in that range, a few ranks above him as my final stash. Cedric Tillman, his college teammate. The story for him coming out of college was, of course, because of I think it was injuries and like a redshirted freshman year and that sort of thing, right? Like, he was older and didn't have as much production, on record, et cetera, et cetera. We kind of talked about him in the process as being sort of a sleeper-ish kind of guy, size, can maybe move into that DPJ role. Well, they got rid of DPJ. And they gave Tillman some run last, couple weeks, right? He's going to be getting some targets. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's injured, right? But who knows how long Amari Cooper is productive, and B, even on the team, right? Elijah Moore gets completely different kind of targets, as does Njoku.
Yeah.
I think he's going to fill in well as a boundary receiver. And listen, in the NFL these days, that's not what it used to be. It seems the Tank Dells of the world that can go inside, outside, get separation, do yak, right? Like they're the guys. And so the X's or the Z's and the boundary, like they're not gonna like be as valuable as they used to be. It's just not the way the game is being played. But all that said, I think he can still be a value. I think he can still be thrown into a trade. And I also honorable mention that I didn't mention yet because I didn't know which one I wanted to go through. Similar story as far as like people liked him as a rookie, although this is his second year, slow to develop, et cetera. But Jalen Tolbert's been getting some looks.
Yeah.
Yep. and you're seeing Dak throwing a lot. Gallup has just, basically become irrelevant. Brandon Cooks, who knows how long he's still playing, or at least still playing on Dallas. So Jalen Tolbert would be another one. But yeah, Tillman's, to have some nice symmetry with his teammate Hyatt there. He's a guy that I'm looking to stash.
Yeah, I like that. And I think he'd be really cheap too, just because. And honestly, he's one of the ones I'd go ahead and go try to do now, because last game he got 5 targets, caught 4 of them, 13 and an 8.8 yards a catch. So I think the usage is going to keep trending up, like you said. I also have a quick honorable mention. This is more for this year, more so like if you're trying to win now. Dearness Johnson's a good person to go pick up. I saw the name. You had him there as one of the people. He's getting the looks over Tank Bigsby right now. I don't know how long that'll last. That's why I say it might just be more short term, but it's one of the better handcuffs, I think, especially if you're an ETN owner, if you just want to get going into the playoffs, an extra running back potentially, because these guys can get hurt anytime. So I think he's a good pickup going into the playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah. He can, guys like him, like Zach Moss this week, could change the playoff picture in somebody's fantasy league, right?
Zach Moss, my most expensive league's a Devy league. I went from 6-1 to 6-6 in 6th place, and I had the second most points scored. I have Zach Moss, so I don't want any players to ever get injured, but like I was happy to be able to plug Zach Moss into my flex. So he's definitely going to help some people make a push.
And at 4,600 this week on DraftKings, he is the chalk.
Eat it.
Of all chalk, right?
Especially cash. Cash, I'm eating it.
Kyle checking in. He prefers Noah Brown over Hyatt. I get it. For me, Noah Brown is like, listen, where did this 27-year-old, 28-year-old, blocking wide receiver hardly ever used, like all of a sudden become really good? Like, I don't like that kind of story to me, like isn't going to last, right? Like CJ Stroud's elevating him, but there's enough targets on that team. And, Mechie taking over, Mechie, another one, maybe a stash, taking over for Robert Woods next year, that sort of thing. I think perhaps development of Xavier Hutchinson, a guy I like, who they've been doing a few targets, but also like sweeps and I just don't know that but listen, I had Brown over Hyatt up until I talked to Josh a couple minutes ago. So I get it. I get it because Brown's producing now with a relevant quarterback, a very good quarterback, and so he's fantasy relevant. Like I get it.
Yeah, Brown looked good last year with the Cowboys. He looked like their second best receiver when they had Gallup out there and some other guys. So he looked pretty good, very sure-handed, like a safe target to throw to.
All right. Well, I guess that just about does it for our stashes episode. So yeah, go stash these guys. Go, put them in that little container that you have that, your parents don't know what it is and they think it's stamps or potpourri or something. I don't know. My brain's a little fried this week. Speaking of, though, I got my first bong that I've ever in 20 years. I haven't had a bong in like over 20 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm a flower person more often than not, but like, but also the edibles kind of smooth out the ADHD med like stimulation and that sort of thing. So I'll mess with a lot of stuff, but if I'm going to be using flour, which can be a little harsher on you, maybe mix in a bong so it's a little smoother on the throat.
Edibles I used to be prescribed Adderall and some other stuff, and I learned like different types of edibles would really help come down with that, so you're not like laying in bed tired but your body's still trying to, or your brain's going vice versa.
My friend calls it a hippie speedball. Like, like I'll take my ADHD med in the morning and then like a little piece of an edible that just kind of smooths out those rough edges and, and brings a different kind of focus,
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're going to get thrown off YouTube if we're or at least thrown off going for 2 because now we can't be monetized because we're promoting.
I don't know. I think Jeff's airing the Christmas episode. So if anything's going to get us taken off YouTube, it'll be that episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, we
I think we're good. Gersten or Ryan will get us kicked off.
Have we? No, Courtney will.
True.
Is there a message about that in Discord? Is he trying to pull the dates together yet?
I think it was in one of the ones on Twitter.
All right. Yeah, I'll talk.
Yeah, it's out there. It's a date. It's December 20 something.
All right, I'll take a look.
20th, I think. But yeah.
All right. I might be
yeah,
able,
it's
might
out
be able
there.
To do it. That's a fun episode.
If not, just shoot him a message. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that'll do it for us. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Going for 2 live podcast audio feed. If you're watching here on YouTube or some of the other places we stream to, like, comment, subscribe, notifications, all that jazz. Feed the algorithm monster what it must be fed. Goingfor2.com, little bottom right Discord button. Go join the Discord. We got hella channels, lots of great conversations about all formats of fantasy football. We've got a show for you essentially every day or night here on YouTube on the Going for 2 live channel. So please make sure you tune in there, including our Sunday morning pregame show tomorrow. Time for plugs. Josh, where can we find you and your work?
You can find me on Twitter or X at Rotonaut, ROTONAUT. And actually this week I just got an invite code for Blue Sky. So if anyone's on there, you can find me there. It's the same username, Rotonaut. I got Dynasty rankings on goingfor2.com. I need to update those. I'll do that tomorrow. But yeah, those are there. We have a channel in the Discord, so come ask us questions.
Yeah. I have a Mastodon account. A lot of socialists were moving there when it looked like Twitter was falling apart and just out of our hate for Elon Musk. But it's one of those things where like, okay, everybody like, okay, I'm going to get a Threads. I'm going to get a Mastodon. I'm going to get a Blue Sky. But like nobody wants to leave to like go to those places. Right. So it's just
I will say it's kind of nice. It's a nice change, but yeah, it's kind of hard completely giving up on Twitter.
Yeah. You can find me at ffjunkie_ on said Twitter X Elon's plaything. Rankings and articles on goingfor2.com. Articles are going to be mostly an off-season thing for me, probably moving forward. And yeah, Dynasty Fever podcast at Dynasty Fever Pod on Twitter. Audio only, usually midweek. We're also been a little irregular with our episode schedule on that podcast this year because life be getting lifey. But listen, that's the way it is, right? Like there's stuff out in this world, and you know, or there's stuff going on in individual lives that, like, listen, have to take precedence.
Oh yeah.
Right. And one of those things, which is not something that I do well, and I have to hear myself say out loud, is rest. Right. Like, rest is resistance. Rest is revolutionary. Right. Like, whatever you're doing in life, whether it's me in political work or whatever it is that, you know, whatever pursuit you have that brings you joy and meaning and purpose, right? Those kinds of things are only sustained when individuals those movements are sustainable only when individuals are sustained, right? And an individual is sustained through self-care and through collective care, the piece that a lot of people have missing, right? And that includes things like beauty and art and rest, right? Like, science tells us that we actually need to spend 42% of our time, episode 42, Hitchhiker's Galaxy, answer to everything, 42% of our time resting, right? And we don't get anywhere near that. So, yeah, you know, think about what's coming first in your life. Obviously, you know, some of us have more privilege to not hustle as much as others have to, right? For bread, right? But yeah, you know, when possible, right? Like, think about what you're devoting your time and your energy to, and does it give you meaning and purpose, right? Does it sustain you? Does it make your life better? Does it make you more able to do the things you love longer? Right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm on a soapbox, but like, I've just been processing a lot in these last few months, right? So
That's important. And when I'm completely misunderstood you when I raised my hand there. I'm definitely having no hustle for bread.
yeah. Well,
So yeah, but yeah, everyone goes through different stuff. Support and take care of ourselves first. And that's what I've been trying to do. Like, if I'm not feeling something, I'm not going to push myself to do it, because then I'm just feeling worse later and it catches up to you later, and it's not a good thing.
you wind up paying that tax no matter
Yep.
what. You wind up paying the piper, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, folks, that'll do it. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Go Irish.
What's your prediction for the 4 teams in the playoff?
I didn't see if UGA beat Alabama. Let me look that up real quick.
Oh, that's right. We're only competing
Alabama
with the SEC
won.
championship.
Oh shit! I think Georgia still gets in.
Really?
I think
so. Like, Alabama 3, Georgia 4. Is that what it looks like? Or Alabama 2? Like, Michigan's in there, right?
Yeah, Michigan will be. Yeah, they beat Ohio State, and I think they won. I don't know if they're playing tonight. It'll really depend by the end of the day. I think there's only one SEC team in.
Oh, does Washington get in there, you think?
They lost. They beat Oregon. So yeah, I think you got to put them in. Oregon's a top 5 team. They beat them.
There's so few conferences that are going to be left now, because it's just going to be 2 big ass conferences. Like, it's hard to say the winner of this and the winner of that. Like, the winner of what, right? Like, there's only 2 conferences.
Yeah, I think it's going to get messy. There's going to be a lot of fan bases that are upset. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, all right.
That's why it's good to be a Notre Dame fan. You don't have to worry about this because you're not in it.
Yeah. Well, listen, I grew up watching the Jets and the Mets, so
yeah,
that's the vibe. All right, y'all, have a great Saturday night. You know, check in on your loved ones and yourself, and, you know, be kind to each other and all that jazz.
Peace.